What's up? It's me, the dude without fear. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you so much for checking my videos out. If you like what you see, give me a thumbs up and hit subscribe and hit the notification bell for more content. If you're a subscriber, thank you so much. Welcome back. I have deemed you all the crew without fear. So, coming at you with a retro review. If you're a subscriber, you know that I haven't been reading as many comic books as I'd like to. I've said I've got other stuff going on, which is totally true. But I've been trying to take a little bit of time to read some comics. And so I want to do a retro review episode on Conan the Barbarian and the Men Who Drink Blood. This was a super interesting comic book, super fun read, and it's my first two-part review. And the video is not going to be two parts. I'm going to do it all in one video, but I am going to try to make it a little quicker. I don't like how long these retro reviews have become, so I'm going to try to sum it up. Unfortunately, to really give you like a good idea of where Conan is at during this period of time, I really need to back up a couple issues and fill you in on some stuff that happened. So starting with issue 100, which is a really good issue. It's called Death on the Black Coast, and it's the issue in which Conan's love, the pirate queen Belit, is murdered. And so she dies. I won't ruin that story for you as to how she dies and what happens, the events of her death. But the crew of the Tigress is just wiped out, and Belit with it. And Conan puts her on the Tigress, her ship, and lights it on fire and sets it out to sea, destroying the Tigress and everything on it, and that era of his life. And so he's off in this land that he's, not been in much before, and because of where they were. And so he, in issue 101, is just out in the woods, mourning the loss of his love, Belit, and this tribe just kind of like ambushes him and captures him. He's running away. He hears them. He's like running away from them because he's kind of outnumbered and surrounded, and he winds up like getting caught in some shrubbery and falling, and they gang up on him and they capture him and stuff. And so in the story, the tribe, when they capture him, he challenges their chief to a match, essentially a duel. And in the duel happens, if you look on the cover, they're standing on like this log over this pit with this giant spider, and this cover is a true depiction of what happens in the book, which is not always the case in the side of comic. So they're fighting on this log over this pit, and Conan, being the warrior that he is, whoops this chief's booty, and he winds up falling on the spider, which is this giant ancient spider who eats people. And so he falls on it, and his bride jumps down with a dagger to try to kill the thing and protect her husband, the chief of their tribe. And Conan jumps down to help them both because he doesn't want either of them to die. And so he jumps down and he kills the spider and protects them both. But the chief of this tribe doesn't he can't not hate Conan, and so he tries to attack Conan, and Conan, in self-defense, kills him. And as is the custom of that tribe, Conan becomes the new war chief, and that dude's bride now belongs to Conan. But Conan, doesn't want any part of that right now because he just lost this woman that he loved. And so now you're caught up to speed, okay? So all that stuff happened. Conan's now the chief of this tribe. And so now we start in on the two-part story, The Men Who Drink Blood. So the story starts out, and Conan's doing this like war cry to like call his tribe to attack the Kungadu, so that they can, defeat them, and they're going to kill them unless they swear loyalty to the Bamulas, which is the tribe that Conan is the chief of now. And so they go and they fight, and they have this battle, and it's, like all Conan's battles, it's pretty epic. And this was written by Roy Thomas, who wrote Conan for a very long time, and drawn by John Buscema, who is amazing, with Ernie Chan. And I don't know who Ernie Chan is, but I know John Buscema. I love John Buscema. John and Sal were an awesome team. Anyway, so the battle's going, and Roy Thomas is describing the epic battle that's taking place, and he's talking about the Bamulas, and he's trying to describe how great a race of warriors that they are. And I just got to show you this panel. He says, "The Bamulas, born of fire and suckled on the breasts of battle." It's weird. Anyway, so the battle's going, and the Kongadu's chief attacks Conan, and Conan just destroys the dude. He rams his face into this tree and kills him. And then once the Kungadu see that their chief's been murdered, they say, "Hey, hold on, drop your weapons. Our chief's dead. Please show us mercies. Our spears are down." And Conan tells his tribe to hold up, don't attack them. And the guy comes up to Conan and says, "Hey, I'm the son of the chief that you just killed. Because you spared our lives, we're going to pledge our allegiance to the Bamulas. And so we offer you our allegiance." And Conan's like, "I accept. That's all I wanted to begin with. That's the whole reason we did this. You all can return to your village." And then this dude says, "No." And Conan's like, "What? Who among the Bamulas dares challenge Conan's word?" He says, "I, Bassatu, say the Kongadu dogs must die. Such has been the way of the Bamulas with their enemies since the king of vultures first flew over the mountains of mist." And Conan says, "And I, Conan, say that way is for children who fear their defeated foes, not for the Bamulas. Will you take up the spear on it, Bassatu, since no others of the tribe stand by you?" And this dude's trembling and shaking, and he's like, No, Conan, I will not take up the spear against you." And Conan says, "Then it shall be as Conan says." And the tribe returns back to their village. And so the tribe's celebrating their victory, and Conan's just sitting there, watching them celebrate and everything. And he decides to retire to his hut, where the former chief's bride is waiting on him. And they have a little discussion, and he pretty much tells her, like, I'm not interested in any of that right now. So but maybe one day, but you don't have to be here or anything like that. And she's like, "Hey, I need a husband, You're a pretty cool warrior, pretty bad, eh? So why not, right? And so she just goes to bed, and Conan goes and sleeps like on the floor. And he's like, I mean, she is kind of cute, but not tonight, not right now. I'm still not interested. Believe, all that. So next day happens, and this tribe is very dependent upon cattle. Like they raise cattle, and that's their thing. And the so I'm sorry, it's not the next day. So it's night, and a guardsman's out patrolling the camp, keeping watch, and this fanged, pointy-eared dude comes up and kills him, and he screams and alerts the camp, and Conan, wakes up, and he's like, "Wake up, you drunks! We're under attack." And so they go out, and he's like, "I want every man who can lift a spear." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Didn't you hear that cry came from him who guards the herd?" And so they run down to the herd, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this can't be." It's like, "The cattle stealers, they are the men who drink blood." It's like, "Flee, brothers of the Bamula tribe, flee, for they are the undead ones, the ones who cannot be slain." And so the Bamulas are totally afraid of the men who drink blood, because they think that they're immortal. And so Conan hears this, and he's like, "What? That can't be true." He's like, "I've seen a lot of supernatural stuff, probably more than most." He's like, "I fear the supernatural as much as any, and I have encountered it more than most. I don't think those point-eared dogs are true vampires. And Crom helped me." And he chucks a spear at one of them, and it goes right through him and pins him against this cow. And he's like, "I was right." And so he's like, "Now do you see?" He's like, "They're just men. Fight them." But the tribe's still terrified. And so Conan goes and fights them and stuff. And then they run off and everything. And Conan hears a scream, and he knows it's the old chief's bride. So he goes back to his hut, and there's 3 of them in there, and they're trying to get her out. And so he fights them, and he pulls his sword and chucks one through, kills another one, hits another one, and knocks him out, and another one escapes. And so they capture the one that he punched, and I'm sorry, the other one doesn't escape. Chucks a spear at him and kills him. Conan's eagle eye with the spear, apparently. So they've got one still alive. And so the Bamulas are wanting Conan to kill him, because he's evil, and he's a man who drinks blood. He's a vampire. And so Conan's like, that's not true. He's not a real vampire. You've seen me kill him, and one of you actually killed one as well. It's like, so it's not a real vampire. And so one of the wise old men from the tribe comes up, and he's like, "I've known for a long time that these aren't actually vampires, but no one will listen to me." And he's like, "Well, they will now." And he tells them, where they live and everything, and that they don't come out in the sun and all that. And then they essentially take the one that they've got, and he can move in the sunlight and stuff, because he's not an actual vampire, but his eyes are just super sensitive to the sunlight. So they've got these, like, he's got these special, like, coverings for his eyes that can help him, walk in the day and everything. So he tells Conan that, he wants to live, and it's all cool, it's all good in the hood. I'll show you where they're at. And they're like, "Don't trust him, Conan." It's like, "This guy's bad news. This whole tribe are bad news." And he's like, "They're just men." And so they take him, and he leads them out to these caves where they live in this mountain. And so he takes them in there, and he speaks in a whisper. They all speak in a whisper, and so they're all whispering at this point because he tells them that they're asleep. So they go into the caves, and he sees all these vampires, or these human vampires as they call them, just laying out asleep. And so he goes deeper in, and he sees this one dude sitting on like this throne of this carved vampire bat on it. And he says, then weird and piercing eyes open, though there is no other movement from the towering figure, and just as swiftly a hidden gateway descends behind the startled intruders. It's like, War Chief, we're trapped here. And one of them's like, hush, Conan said to whisper. Besides, we still have our spears. And then all these vampires wake up. And these guys are kind of freaking out. And the chief vampire says, kill them. And so a battle starts. And Conan immediately goes to the one that led him there. And he's like, you lying dog. And he's like, you swore the Drellics slept in daytime. He says, there is no daytime here, mightiest of fools, only night. Night such as I will send you shrieking to. And he pulls a knife out of one of the Bamula's sheaths, the Bamula's confused at the moment. And Conan's too quick for him. He kills him. And, they're fixing to do this battle, and Conan goes up to the main vampire, and he impels him with his sword, and nothing happens. He just stands there with the sword in him, and Conan's like, holy crap, what? He's like, this is no strutting masker he faces, but a real vampire. And he says the thought fills him with sudden panic, as real as ever that of his fighters, yet almost as quickly as he lashes out, beating hammer-like yet strangely ineffectual fists against the eldritch being before him. So the vampire picks him up with one hand around his throat, and then picks him up over his head and chucks him and knocks him out. And so the dude in the Bamulas who was questioning Conan earlier, they're kind of looking to him for like, what do we do, man? He's like, drop your spears. It's like, just surrender. We'll recoup. And so then the vampire king picks up Conan, who is way bigger than him, and carries him off. And then we go into the next issue, which is actually called Bride of the Vampire, but it's still about the men who drink blood. So that's the name that I'm calling this thing. So the vampire takes Conan into the cavern, deeper into the caves, and the Drellics take the Bamulas into this dungeon that they've got for prisoners. So they put them all in there, and they're kind of just like, what do we do? It's like, the only guy that can really help us is unconscious, so we're just going to wait. And so the vampire dude puts Conan on like this altar, and he's about to feed on him when Conan wakes up and socks him a good one right in the jaw. And then he starts talking to Conan, and as the villains always do. And so he tells him his origin story, what happened, what made him this way. And he belonged to a tribe in that land a long time ago, and he was walking around hunting by himself away from his tribe, and a giant bat came and attacked him, and it bit him and clawed him, and he like stabbed it and stuff, but it wouldn't die until his spear went through him and into through his heart, and the wood went through his heart, and then that killed the vampire bat, which then this dude immediately died because he had been bitten and clawed, and he woke up 3 days later, and he was now a vampire and immortal, and he feeds on some cattle and stuff, and then he goes back to his tribe and everything, and he kind of changes some stuff. He starts having them file their teeth down, and they do something to their ears to make them pointed so that they look more like vampires, and they only use their women for breeding purposes, and he says that they have no use for women other than to breed, and so they don't have any women around. It's just dudes, just a bunch of vampire dudes shacking up together, and they only use women when they want to breed and create more of them. So he tells Conan that he's not given any of his people the power that he has to be a real vampire because he didn't think that they were worthy. It's like, just like Conan's tribe, the Bamulas are not worthy of Conan to be their leader. And so he tells Conan, you are worthy of the power that I have, and you and I could reign together for eternity and think of the great things that we could accomplish. And Conan's like, I'm not going to be some undead freak. He's like, I don't want any part of that. It's like, I'd rather die a warrior's death than become this abomination. And so he throws Conan. He's like, you may not be. Conan tries to fight him and fails, and he knocks Conan out again, which should tell you how strong this guy is, because Conan, you just can't knock Conan out so easily. So he throws Conan in this dungeon, and Conan comes to, and there's a woman in there, and he's like, what? I thought there weren't any women here. And she's like, I am his bride. He has bitten me, and I've been around for a very long time. I'm not immortal, but I'm very old, and I'm now starting to age, so now he has no need of me, which is why he's after you. And Conan's like, what? No, I don't want any part of that. And so he tries to get out, and they can't. And so then when it becomes night outside again, they bring Conan out, and he's like, chain Conan up here. I'll make a pet of the fool till I can make of him something more. And Conan's like, that's never going to happen, buddy. And so then they get one of Conan's people, and they're going to murder him and use his blood to feed all these other Drellics. And Conan's forced to watch it, and they see him gut the guy and kill him, and then they just all pounce on him and start just drinking his blood. And Conan's like, he's disgusted, he's sick, and he's like, this is evil, this is awful. He's like, let my dudes go. You've got me, I'm what you want. Take me, let all of them go. And he's like, deal. He's like, you're what I want. I don't want anything to do. I don't need these guys. They're nothing to me. You're the prize. And so he frees his dudes, who otherwise would just have the same thing happen to them, because they're all defenseless. They're outnumbered at this point. And their war chief is chained up. He can't do anything either. So he just says, let them go. He lays down his life so that they can live. And so they all leave. They get their weapons on their way out, and they go off. And so they go back. And Conan's like, hopefully they'll come back for me, but they probably won't, because Basuto doesn't like me, and now he can rule the tribe. And he's like, no matter, I've lost Belit, and if this is how it ends, this is how it ends. But I wish that I could have had more life. And so he is talking to the King Drellic and everything, and the Drellics, he's like, when you've got me, what of the woman? What are you gonna do with her? It's like, I don't have need of her anymore. She's become useless to me. I'll just kill her, and that's it. I'll be done. And so she hears this. They've left the door unsealed because he trusts her, and she hears this, and she gets pissed, and so she shoves a spear in his back, and he turns on her and beats her up a little bit and everything. And Conan runs. He's chained up. His hands are chained, but he's not attached to anything. So he runs and he's trying to get away. And he hits the Drellic dude with his chains on his way out to kind of like buy him a little more time. And so he gets in this other room of the cavern, and he doesn't really see anywhere to go except for some vines hanging from the top. So he's like, I'll go up. He would make Obi-Wan Kenobi very proud because he's going for the high ground. And so he starts climbing up, and then the other Drellics come, and they see him, and so they're all waiting down while the Drellic King, the vampire guy, starts climbing up. And so they start to fight and everything, and Conan's like, I can't take them all on. He's like, I'm gonna die up here. He's like, at least it's a warrior's death. And then he sees one of the Drellics get impaled through the chest with a spear, and he looks, and it's the Bamulas have come back, or the Bamulas, however you say their tribe name. I don't know. I'm saying Bamulas because that's what I've said the whole time. And they start pouring in, and Conan's like, yeah, dude. Yes. He's like, the cavalry. And so the Drellic King keeps climbing up, and he's still after Conan, still going to fight Conan. And Conan tries to go up, and he gets him and by the ankle and pulls him down. And he's like, I could have given you the life that was never ending and all the power that it brought, and you wanted no part of it, so now I'm just going to feast on you. And so he's made up his mind, I'm just going to kill you now, Conan. And so Conan starts fighting and stuff, and gets a good kick in on him and kind of disorients him a minute. And he starts to climb back up the wall, and he looks and he sees he's still got this spear hanging out of his back. And he's like, holy crap. And he remembers the story that the Drellic told him of his own beginning when he killed the bat. So he jumps down off the wall and grabs the spear and kind of shoves the Drellic off the cliff. And the Drellic turns back, and he's falling backwards, and he's like, what's this going to do? And then he remembers, oh snap, there's a spear in my back, and 9/10 of this thing is wood. And then he lands on the ground, and it impels him through, and it goes through his heart, and he's dying. And Conan goes up to him and beheads him, because you gotta behead a vampire. And so then it's over. The battle's over. The Bamulas go back to their village, and on the way back, he's asking Basuto, why'd you come back for me? He's like, you don't like me. You could have ruled. I wouldn't have blamed you for it. And he was like, it was you who were first to face the Drellic King in combat, not I. I still want a Bamula on our war throne, but I would rather serve a brave white man than become war chief that way. Meaning there was no honor in what I would have done to you. And I want to be on the throne, but I want to do it honorably. And Conan's, cool, man. You're now second in command. You're the sub chief. And he's like, and you deserve a bride to bear you children and carry on this legacy. And so he says the old war chief's bride, he's like, why don't you take her as your bride? And because you deserve that, and she deserves that, and it's fitting. And he's like, cool, all right, yeah, sure, I'll take a bride. And then he takes the bride, and Conan's thinking, he says, yeah, even so he aches in remembering. He says, but if she'll have you, as I suspect she will, you'll suit her better than I. And he says, besides, he travels highest who travels lightest. So Conan's thinking, I don't know how long I'm going to stick around here. I got other journeys to take. So in this story, in these last actually 4 issues of Conan the Barbarian that I've read, and they're all sequential, 100 through 103, I've learned a lot about Conan the Barbarian. My first instance of Conan, my first taste of Conan that I got was, of course, the Schwarzenegger movies. And there's not a whole awful lot of character development in those. It's kind of just big, strong, tough warrior dude fighting battles. And, I kind of had like this almost negative perspective of Conan. Because Conan was, in my mind, he was just, he's a barbarian. He's all about battle and all about war. And he is all about these things. But he is also much more than that. There's a lot of character to the guy. Like, he didn't want the chief to die. He went down to save him. And the chief couldn't stop his own hatred. And he wound up killing him, but not because he wanted to. And so, he's not just about doing awful stuff. He's just about living his life. And so I really like that I've been able to see the character of Conan the Barbarian, kind of get a better understanding of who he is. And this story was really cool because you didn't see a real vampire being like the main bad guy. And there's all sorts of mystical stuff and supernatural stuff all throughout the Conan the Barbarian series. It's fantasy, it's mysticism and all this stuff. It's high fantasy stuff, and it's action, and it's adventure, and it's cool stuff. But not every Conan comic gives you something that you can really apply to your own life. And this is in 1979, and so comics are still geared towards kids, right? And Conan's pretty adult stuff. But like, there's a moral here, right? And to me, the thing that stood out to me the most in this comic is the only thing that saved Conan's life is the fact that he gave up his life to save his tribe. And that's some biblical stuff. Greater love hath no man than a man that lays down his life for his friends. And they're not necessarily his friends, they're his tribe whom he's over. But Conan was like, hey man, take me, there's no reason to kill all these dudes. And so Conan sacrificed himself so that his tribe could live. And he's not been with this tribe very long. Maybe a month. Maybe. Not long at all. And I think a month's pushing it, really. But so he's barely been with these people. But he has this responsibility that he knows he has over these people. And so he takes that as responsibility. He assumes that responsibility, and he says, hey, take me and leave them alone. And in doing so, if he hadn't have done that, then they probably all would have died. He would have just said, forget it, and tried to fight his way out, then they'd just kill them all. But because he stood up and was brave enough to say, take me, it wound up being the thing that saved all of them. And that's pretty cool. And that was a very selfless thing, and that's a very heroic thing. And that's the thing that I got out of this story. It's a story about Conan the Barbarian fighting freaking vampire tribe, right? But out of that story I got, don't be afraid to put others before yourself, because putting others before yourself may be the thing that saves you. And I can speak to that in my own life. I've done stuff for people, strangers, like out grocery shopping or something, and like you see somebody, like whatever it is, like some thing that I've done before, and I took out that step, and I was like, I'm just going to do this for them, and I'll do this thing, and then you've helped this person out, but it also helps you in return. Doing good for people is not just a benefit for them, it also benefits you, because it's usually a humbling experience. And we could stand to be a little more humble in this world, I think, instead of putting ourselves on such huge pedestals. We could knock ourselves down a couple notches, I believe, and realize that we don't know it all, and we don't understand everything, and we're not the best thing since sliced bread. So that's what I got out of it, is don't be afraid to put your life down for other people's lives, and don't be afraid to humble yourselves for others. So that's my review. I went long again, I'm sorry, I'm just very long-winded, but I just talked about 4 issues, bro. 4 issues, so give me a break, okay? But I'm glad that I got to make a video for you guys. I'm glad I got to read some comics and talk about some comics. I've got a lot more Conan comics to read, so you'll probably see some more Conan here in a little bit. But if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you've got some Conan recommendations for me, leave them in the comments. I'll be glad to read them. And thank you all for watching. As always, be excellent to each other, and until next time, take it easy.